Hello, YouTube. It's me, John Avenger, once again, and welcome back to Movies A to Z month. This time we're at letter K. Yes, just like the guy in Men in Black. This time we're talking about a sequel that came out in 1986 to one of the best martial arts dramas of the 80s, an iconic movie with no filter. It's total 80s. And this is the sequel, The Karate Kid Part 2. Yes, we're not talking about 3 this time. We're talking about Part 2. This movie literally takes place after the first one, so it's like right after. The opening is pretty interesting. They of course show the recap of the ending of the first film where Daniel does the crane kick, kicks the guy in the face, wins the tournament, and then it goes from there. Then uh, Kreese is pissed off, so he tries to punch Mr. Miyagi. He tries to choke out his own student, and then Mr. Miyagi stops him, and then he tries to punch. He punches some. Tries to punch Miyagi and knocks some glass, and then he's never heard from again. And Miyagi's about to chop his head off, and he's like, "Huh," and then throws him and winks at Daniel, and that's it. And then the rest of the movie is basically the backstory of Mr. Miyagi, what happened to him in Japan and Okinawa, and him trying to reconcile with his friend from Japan and trying to meet his fathers, to who trained him and his best friend Sato, who's in the movie. He's in Japan and he's a bit. I think he's like a businessman or something like that. Yeah. This is the synopsis, just in case. Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio, who accompanies his karate teacher, Mr. Miyagi, to Okinawa in aid of his dying father, only to encounter a group of bullies who had long harbored grudges against Miyagi. And this is still directed by John Avildsen. It still has a lot of merit to it, but I do have some issues with this movie. Number one, this movie is way too slow. If you thought the first movie was long and you had to wait a while for the action, this one you have to wait even longer. And this movie's shorter than the first movie. It's 113 minutes. I think that's a little bit too long. The first movie was like 2 hours, I think. The first movie was an hour, 127 minutes. So it's like, what, 15 minutes shorter? See, 113, 120 to 7. Yeah, like 12 minutes shorter than the original. I think these movies are too long. Like you could cut like a third of the running time of this movie, and it would not make a difference. There are a lot of scenes in the beginning that just drag on. Not the opening. The opening is fine. It leads to where they're going to go to Okinawa. But there's a lot of scenes where him and Daniel are talking about Japan, and then they have to get on the plane, and then they have to get to the airport, and then it just goes on and on and on. You don't even meet um, Tamlin Tamita, the main girl that plays Kumiko. You don't even see her until like 20 or 30 minutes into the film, and she's good in the film. Very beautiful Asian woman, and the actors mostly speak English really well. I mean, you have Nobi McCarthy as Yuki, and no is, oh yeah, that's the older woman. She's from Canada, so that's a nice nod. You have Yuji Ukumoto as Chosen. He's the lead villain of the movie that fights Daniel at the end, but you have to wait a long time for that. That's my biggest problem: the pacing, the running time, and like I said, there's some characters that just serve no purpose in the movie. Daniel and Miyagi are great together. They were great in the first movie. Their dynamic works really well. Without them, the movie would be incredibly boring. It'd just be some generic Japanese martial arts drama with not a lot and very interesting. Soundtrack is pretty good, not as good as the first one, but still. Sato is Danny Kamikona. Yeah, BD Wong is also in the film as an Okinawan boy who invites Daniel and Kamiko to a dance club. Yeah, that was him before he was in the Phantom and Mulan, the original, and everything else in Gotham. But like I said, this movie you could tell was rushed because it was done 2 years after the first one because the first one was a huge hit and they started production on the second one. And while I do like some things about it, I think that there's some things that are just padded out just to make the movie go on longer. I like that it ends, and really that should have been the ending of the franchise. You didn't need a third one, and you definitely did not need a spin-off with Hilary Swank in the 90s, which was shitty. By that time, Pat Morita was already too old to play Miyagi. I was like, he was already old in the first movie, and by the fourth movie, I was like, oh my god, will they just end this already? Here, I'm like, it's fine. To me, it's the ending of the Daniel and Miyagi arc. 3 never happened to me. But anyway, yeah, the reception, I can see why this got a mixed reaction from Rotten Tomatoes. I loved this movie as a kid, but it's definitely as an adult, it's way too slow. Like I prefer the first one. mainly because it's built up to Daniel training to get to the tournament, beating everybody, and beating the lead guy at the end, William Zabka. I think, yeah, it's worth it, and that leads up to the Cobra Kai TV show that I haven't seen yet, but I've heard good things about. Here's the synopsis. Here's the consensus. A worthy follow up to the first one with added interest provided by exotic locations and characters, yes, but the pacing is way too slow. This did not need to be a drama. You could have made it a martial arts action comedy a little bit more, lighten the mood a little bit because there are some comedic moments in the movie, but it kind of doesn't gel well with the dramatic moments like Miyagi losing his dad and Chozen beating the hell out of Daniel, just like Zabka did in the first one. And there's a lot of things from the first one in that movie. The fight at the end, instead of Daniel it being in a tournament, it's a fight at the end, which is a little bit anticlimactic because it's so long to get to it. This isn't like Endgame where the fight at the end paid off with even with 3 hours because you were waiting for that, and it was just freaking, it was the money shot. Here, it's like a 3 minute fight. Daniel gets his ass kicked, then he fights back, and then he's about to beat Chozen. He's like, he does a windmill move where the people are playing the drums, which are pretty cool. Like I said, I love the Japan location, but I prefer movies like Three Ninjas Kickback. It's shorter, it's in Japan, they show more of Japan, and it was a much better sequel. Like this is not better than the first one. It says that the movie gave the film a mixed review with both critics praising the character Miyagi but criticizing the villains and the action scenes. Yeah, there's very little action in the movie, guys. If you're looking for a martial arts epic, just go see Enter the Dragon, or see the first movie, or see the Raid, or see Tekken, or see Mortal Kombat, because you're not going to get a lot of action in this movie. It's mostly a drama piece. A well shot, beautifully cinematography. It's not really Japan. They filmed in Hawaii, so there's a lot of Asians there too. It's not the Asian culture that bothered me. It's just the pacing. This feels like an Ang Lee movie. It's just way too long. And like I said, yeah, they said that Pat Morita's performance is good and calling the actor the heart of the movie. Yeah, without him and Daniel just there sightseeing and there's no purpose. Leonard Maltin said the strengths of the performances, he called the film purposeless. Yeah, because if this was just like this feels like an add-on to the first movie, not really like a sequel that goes in a completely different direction. It does something different, but it's not like as epic as the first one. This isn't like Captain America Winter Soldier where you go deeper into the characters with him and Bucky and it gets darker and there's a lot more action. And that's what you should do in a sequel. Don't make it boring, just make it a little more faster pace. And that was the one thing they did well in the Rocky movies, but in this franchise it didn't work. That's why Rocky had more sequels, because when Stallone directed 2 and 3 and 4, I believe, yeah, he made the films faster paced. He didn't drag it out for like 2 hours. It's short and to the point. When Avildsen came back for 5, it was more of a drama than an action movie or like a sports film. But here, yeah, you can definitely feel the pacing troubles. It's just very slow paced. And it's not a horrible movie. Bill Conti's music is good. He won a top box office films for the original music. It also received an Academy Award for Glory of Love. It's a nice song. It's not it's not as good as the song in the first movie, which is, what was it? Not Hearts on Fire. That was Rocky 4. You're the best around. Nothing's ever gonna keep you down. You're the best around. It's a decent sequel, but like I said, it's not a movie I can watch as much as the first one because it's just way too slow. And that's one reason I haven't seen Irishman, guys, because like this movie, it's a slow burn. There's a reason that movie's 3 hours and 27 minutes because it probably starts in like a flashback and doesn't end until the last 3 hours. Just I'm a guy that likes to see things fast paced. Endgame is very long, yes, but when I was invested in the characters, even the slow parts, I was like, what's going to happen next? With this movie, I've seen it. I saw it when I was a kid, but I saw it less than the first one because it's too slow. Like it just drags, and I wish it would not. It wouldn't have been that slow. And one of the writers I'm not is a very hit and miss writer. He's Robert Mark Kamen. Let's see what he's done. This guy did Taps. He did the first movie. He wrote the third movie, but only with the characters. He did the 1989 Punisher that has way more action than this. Lethal Weapon 3, I like. Under Siege, love that movie. The Fugitive. So in the 90s, he struck a chord, but with this movie, I'm like, why did you make the movie slow? Kiss of the Dragon, The First Transporter. Transporter 2. See, again, but then he did Transporter 3. The remake of Karate Kid, which is way too long. That's the longest in the franchise. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, will you please just get on with it? I don't like a slow movie, guys. You have to have. And he also wrote the Taken sequels. And he recently did an Angel Has Fallen, which is on Netflix. It has to be. It's faster paced than this. A slow burn could be good. Logan was a slow burn, but it led to something. It had a payoff. Even though it's a depressing ending, it has a payoff. Here, it's like him and Miyagi are talking about how it was in Okinawa, and then how he misses his family, and he wanted to reconnect with Sato and bury the hatchet. There's a storm that happens in the movie. There's like a hurricane or something, and Daniel saves a little girl. That's a good scene, but there's a lot of padding. And I'm like, oh my God, you could have made this movie an hour and 40 minutes. Cut out 15 minutes of the padding, like when they get to the airport and when they meet Sato and when they meet Chosen. And I'm like, yeah, and the accents didn't bother me, guys, because again, they're Asian. They're not going to bother me. The romance is fine here. In the third movie, it's problematic. The fourth movie, they didn't even do a romance because Daniel's nowhere to be found. But in this movie, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Him and Tamlin Tamita have a decent rapport, and she's a beautiful Asian girl. I'm not going to complain about that. But again, trim the fat and make the movie faster paced and put some more action, please. What were you wanted Daniel beating up a bunch of villagers? No, I wanted to see more action. Him and Chosen should have had two fights before the end, where Chosen's trying to kill him, and he tried to abduct Tamlin Tamita's character Kamiko. And I'm like, yeah, of course, it's fine that she's not a martial artist. I'm expecting every girl to be a martial artist, but again, do something more than with that. The villains are just forgettable. Sato could have been a badass that I don't know, beat up Miyagi or something, or beat up Chosen, or beat up Daniel. Like Kreese in the first movie was threatening. He was very threatening. Martin Cove had a lot of presence, and he was very memorable. Even though he's over the top, the enemy deserves no mercy. You remember that. Here with Sato, he sounds like a Japanese anime character. You are slow, and I will kill you, or something like that. Yeah, he sounds like that. And I'm not trying to be racist here, but that's what he sounds like. And I'm like, you could have done more with this guy. He kind of looks intimidating, but they don't give him much to do. He just stands and talks and wears sunglasses, and him and Miyagi just talk, about old times, and they do reconnect. But with Chosen, I'm like, he's just an angry Asian guy. I've seen that before, guys. But anyway, if you want to see the second movie, it's not horrible. It's worth a watch. But I would say rent it or watch it online. Don't buy it. Like it's worth a watch, at least one watch if you've seen the original. But it's very slow. It's way too slow for me. I'm like, okay, when's there going to be a fight? Oh yeah, Daniel has a Chosen beats him up for like 5 seconds. That's it. I'm like, that's it. I'm not expecting Bruce Lee here, guys. But again, you have to be faster paced than that. I know Rocky was a long movie, but it's a long sports drama with a lot of heart, and it's so memorable. Rocky running up the stairs and putting his arms up, and him and Adrian's love story, and him fighting Apollo Creed twice and becoming friends with him. Here, it's like things are going too fast. Some stuff subplots get overlooked, and the story just drags. And I'm like, I don't need dragging, guys. I watch anime. I know there are plenty of animes where they stretch out the running time and they stretch out a storyline. When a story needs to end, just end it. At 90 minutes or an hour and 40, we get it. Sequels don't always need to be longer or shorter, but with more padding, Just saying. But anyway, I don't hate this movie. It's decent. Definitely avoid the third movie though. That is a shitty movie. That's just a remake of the first movie with two villains, a love story that doesn't work. Daniel gets his ass kicked a lot, and it's just uneventful. And you could tell Pat Morita was already done after the second one. They should have ended it with the second one. It has a decent ending. Daniel survives. He beats Chosen. He gives him mercy, and him and Tamlin Tamita happily ever after. And then the third movie never happened, just in my mind. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Karate Kid 2, watch it at your own discretion. If you like the first one, it is better than the remake. I can say that. That one was way too long and uneventful and not needed. If it was never made, I would have been fine with just the first two films. But anyway, a step down from the first movie, but not terrible. Decent enough to watch, but once. It doesn't have as much rewatchability as the first one. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.